All right, well, this is the almost like watching paint dry, so we're gonna make ourselves useful while we're waiting this thing to complete some of its cuts. So I need another base like this with the V groove in the far end to build a fixture off. So I'm going to take this piece of 1¼ mile flat bar and cut it to length and put a V groove in it, and then get the height correct for where it'll ride against that flat there versus the V groove there. So let's see how we make out. Okay, well, first things first, we're going to put it into the wishes it was a Bridgeport, and we're going to go from having a piece of hot rolled flat bar and start beavering away at it and making it into a piece of stock that we can actually use. So we're going to put a bit of a face mill in the machine and take a cleanup cut there, and then we'll flip it over, do exactly the same thing again, and then we'll take it over to the saw and we'll cut this, probably trim down each end so it's got a decent saw cut, and then we'll come back here and square up those ends. Okay, we got the both edges cleaned up with the mill, and now we're just gonna take a test cut here to see how well the saw is doing, and we'll trim off each end. Trouble is, we have no idea what's been done with this saw between when we put that new blade on. So, and while we're waiting for the saw to cut, we'll make ourselves useful here. There it is. We got the vise opened all the way up, and we're going to be cutting that piece of flat bar to 10 inches long. So the other day, Joe Pye made a video about cleaning off your machines with compressed air, and that takes courage. I love it. Some of the comments are quite humorous. It's people are very passionate about such things, and they like to project and sound as if there's only one way of skinning a cat in the shop, I guess. All right, there we go. We got things switched around, and that gives us that much. Pretty cool. I know it's a bit early, but I wanted to do something while I was waiting for Mr. Bandsaw in the background there to finish cutting. Well, we're also waiting for that to finish a cut, so might as well do it now. We can cheat a little bit for the next step. So there we are. Yes, it's a little bit silly, but it allowed us to get the jaws where they needed to be ahead of time. All we're going to do is take a cleanup pass on each side to get this face here square with this face here, and we're holding it with a bunch of key stock spacers in there. It's fine. A lot of this is so that we don't have to change the tooling. We can do this whole job with one tool. All right, we got her sped up to 3,000 RPM there, and we're gonna do a couple of quick finish passes over that. We're gonna do them all climb milling for the finish passes. Alright, so that's good enough for the next step. There is a little bit of a transition between each one of those three passes, because of course we're using insert tooling there. It's not markedly different than using a kind of worn end mill in a way, but all we really care about is that we've got a decent enough surface, the height that these jaws are going to grab on, so that it's 90 degrees to there. So we've got a good rectangle now. It's good enough. We're going to end up probably trimming down some length off these ends anyways. So, all right, there's one flat side faced. There's little wee steps in there because this wasn't trammed back in all that awesome last time I stood it back up, which is just fine, because you'll see. So as we get deeper, we get to a point where the V is, you know, each side of the V is deeper than that insert. So you have to pre-cut one side first, deeper, and then move the part back over to your established 0 point, and then bring the table up again, and then blend that edge. There's a bunch of different ways of doing it. Big end mill in a heavy milling machine would be the best, or you can come at it from both sides. But in this case, with the fact that the part is you know, lopsided, there's, you know, features on one side of the part, it's not easy to spin it in the vise, so to speak. I find this is the simplest way. I don't build these all the time. You know, I've built the you know, maybe one every couple of years, and I've done them set up different ways, but this will work fine. Alright, so there we've got the V cut in it, and we've given it a little bit of a touch up with the Scotch-Brite pad there, and I'm just going to throw it down on the bed of the lathe, and we take a Sharpie pen and we just mark the underside here just roughly so that we know the extent of the portion that sits out in no man's land here. So we got to eventually make this the correct altitude in relation to this, and looks like we're also going to have to take a whiff off over there. So all right, we got the tailstock off and upside down, which is definitely an undignified attitude for a tailstock to be on. And we've sort of played around with our pretend straight edge here, which is a piece of key stock with a nice little ding in it. And then we'll throw a piece of round stock in the V, and then measure down to it with a depth micrometer, and away we go. So now we come over and we set the part into the vise, and straight edge our pretend dowel pin, then we'll measure down to the top just like we did on the other object. And then all we have to do is take down this section of this plate, reduce that height, and that'll bring that down to the correct altitude. That middle section is of no importance because it just sits in the middle of the bedway of the lathe, so we only really have to reduce this section here, and we've got to bring it down about 73 thousandths by the looks of it. So we'll take a couple of roughing passes and then have another measure, bearing in mind we will not be able to measure straight across anymore as we reduce that, unless we also reduce this midsection as well. Okay, so we just we went for it. When we had it in the mill, we measured down and we did 3 cuts, and we got to that sort of step there. We left all the waste in the middle, so it's high, I can't measure it anymore. But now with it set down on the bed of the machine, it's just fine. That's totally fine. And then we'll just make up a clamp that'll go across the bottom with a stud or a bolt going through there like so, just like on the steady rest kind of idea. And then we've got a base plate to build other things off of. So, and of course there it is, flipped right way or upside down, I guess. So there's the V that I cut in it, and then there is the step that's reduced. So I cut the V kind of wild but deep, and then reduced this area to bring it down to the correct altitude in relation to that V. So just a slightly different methodology rather than surfacing it first and then accurately establishing the height of that V. I just find it a little easier to do it that way. And this section here doesn't even need to be faced because it's going to be facing down, and the flies and the oil won't care whether the mill scale's on there or not. So there she be. Just I got to deburr it a little bit and done deal.